going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Excited to speak to Al from Foreigner, my favorite band.
All right. So we have Al Greenwood from Foreigner. Al, thanks for stopping by. And Greg is a music aficionado. If he loves music, meaning,
Okay,
yeah, especially
very good.
certain time periods.
Um,
So go ahead,
Uh-huh.
Greg, and why you're a fan of Foreigner, and then ask your first question for
well,
Al.
I'd love to, I'd love to ask you a back-to-back. Kind of goes a long question. How did you guys meet and decide to start Foreigner to begin with?
Well, this is actually Mick Jones' band. So he started the whole thing off. It was in February of 1976 that I got a phone call from Mick. And I didn't know who Mick Jones was, but he explained that he had been in Spooky Tooth and the Leslie West Band and a whole bunch of other things that he was doing, and that he wanted to put a new project together. And would I be interested?
Oh, very
So,
cool.
so I told him, I said, I've got my own band at the time. I really wasn't looking to do anything else. But after thinking about it, I said, well, he's probably in a lot better position than I am to get things going. So I said, okay, let's do this. So we got together in his manager's office, which was on Broadway in Manhattan. And in the middle of his office, he had this storage area. So we moved aside all of these file cabinets and we set up our instruments and we started to play. Well, we just jammed, really. Blues jams, Johnny Be Good, you name it, we played it. And after about 2 weeks of this, I say to myself, gee, I don't know if this is for me. We're just jamming. There's no songs. There's no direction. I think I'm going to just go back to the band that I had. So the next day I go in and I'm about to tell Mick, and he says, I've got this song where he starts to play, feels like the first time on guitar. And I said, whoa, wait a minute here. I think we've got something special going on. And that was the very beginning of what was to become Foreigner.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. Real quick follow-up on that one. Did you guys, I have to know, ever imagine how successful Foreigner 4 was going to be?
Well, I really wasn't a part of Foreigner 4, but I have to admit, when I did hear Foreigner 4, I knew that this was going to be spectacular and a huge hit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were there, you had that big break, right?
Well,
When you
it
joined,
was the start. It
yeah.
was like shot out of a cannon in March of '77 when we released that first record. It just it went gold within 4 weeks, which at that time for a debut artist, it was a record for a new band to go gold. And we went right out on tour. We supported the Doobie Brothers, which was great because I love the Doobie Brothers. And we were on. It was Michael McDonald was there, so it was a great time for us. A good way for us to grow because we had never played together before as a band live. That was the first time that we went out live. So after about 4 weeks of being with the Doobie Brothers, our record went platinum, and they put us out on our own as a headliner. So from that point on, we were headlining shows. Everything went just so quickly.
Wow. So would you say that the song was the big break, or the Doobie Brothers playing with them was the big break?
Oh, absolutely. The song. I
Yeah.
mean, it took to radio really quickly. I mean, it shot up to number 4. Um, and it was, that was what really propelled us was the song Feels Like the First Time.
Yeah.
And, supporting it, we were, like I said, just trying to get our live act together, which we really hadn't worked on. We hadn't thought that it was going to take off that quickly. Um, but we put it all together, and we were all musicians, all from great backgrounds, so we knew what to do, and it worked out really well.
Putting all you guys together, there had to be a special chemistry, right? Going on.
Yeah, yeah, we all came from different backgrounds. I mean, Mick obviously had this extensive background of all the bands that he was in, all the influences that he had. I was into progressive rock at the time, Emerson, Lake and Palmer and early Yes and early Genesis, all that stuff was my thing. And when Ian McDonald came down to join the band, I was blown away. It was like, oh my God, King Crimson. So yeah, that became a part of it. You know, all the different influences. I mean, Dennis Elliott, he was in a British band called If, who were sort of like a Blood, Sweat, and Tears version, jazz rock version. And Lou Gramm came from a blues rock band called Black Sheep. So we put all these influences together and the chemistry and all that just worked really spectacularly to make the sound that was Foreigner.
Oh, wow.
What were some of your favorite or fondest or best memories that you had when you were with the band?
Well, there was one show that our manager wanted us to do. We were in the studio. We were finishing up the Double Vision record, and we were in LA. We were in Studio City, and Keith Olsen was producing it. So we're finishing up, putting final touches on the record, and we get a phone call from our manager saying, "I've got this show that I want you guys to do." And we said, "Well, we're in the studio right now. We're not really set up to do a live show." And he says, no, you really have to do this show. And he wouldn't tell us what it was. So I go, okay. So the next day we go into a rehearsal studio in LA, go through the set once, you know, not knowing what this is all about. The next day they take us to the airport and we get into helicopters. I go, okay, well, this is interesting. So we're up in the air about 20 minutes and I'm looking down and I say, gee, that looks really strange. And as we get closer, I realize it's just people. As far as the eye can see, it was just people. So we land, and I realized it was California Jam 2. And we were in front of 300,000 people. It was going to be televised live. And we just ran through the set once. But we pulled it off. It was great. And not only that, but I think we played Hot Blooded for the first time in front of 300,000 people before the record was even released. So it was sort of like trial in front of 300,000 people, and they seemed to enjoy it. So that was great.
That's amazing.
Wow. That's got to be crazy. That many people?
Yeah. It was incredible. It was just like, you just look out, you couldn't see the end of the people. It was just amazing.
How do you have
a
the
great bill.
energy? Is it really easy to get the energy in a crowd that large?
Oh yeah, the adrenaline just flows like crazy. I mean, you are in it. It was just a wonderful experience. Aerosmith was also on the bill.
Oh, wow.
I believe Heart, Ted Nugent, a whole bunch of other bands during the day. It was a whole, day long festival type thing.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned Aerosmith. I'm in Boston. That's where, those guys are.
Right.
I'm always curious. Do you guys, like, from different famous bands become friends and get together and stuff, or?
You try to. I mean, you pass each other, on the road. When you're on the road, you do shows with each other, which have, very little contact. At that time, everybody's just doing their own thing and going around. There was so much music going on and so many tours happening that, that there wasn't that much time to, get together, except with your opening act. I think the Cars opened up for us for a while, so we were good friends with them. Cheap Trick opened up for us, so we remained really good friends. So great band, great guys. So yeah, you do tend to get some relationships going, but it's hard when everybody's going from city to city and you're just passing each other. One night, the night before, they say, well, Aerosmith was just playing the night before, and then you come in and you play. It was that exciting. There's a lot going on.
Well, definitely seems like it. And I guess when you look at your Foreigner versus other bands at that time, what made you different?
Well, I tend to think we had songs. I mean, the songwriting was just spectacular. And by the way, both Mick Jones and Lou Gramm are also in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. So the songwriting was great. The musicianship was really spot on. I mean, we had this multi-layered sound. I mean, on the surface, it may seem like it's simple, But when you break it down, you peel away the layers, there's an awful lot going on. And all of us, contributing all the different influences that we had made that sound. And I think it influenced a lot of other bands that came after us, including Journey and Bon Jovi and a whole, Loverboy. I could name a lot of bands that seemed to be influenced by what we were doing.
Yeah, I can definitely hear that for sure. So you mentioned, Writers Hall of Fame. What's it like being part of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Oh, that's an incredible honor. I mean, to be recognized finally by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the achievements that we made, that's something we've waited for a while. But I'm really happy, ecstatic. I couldn't be more elated than to, finally get in there. It took us a while, but we did it. And now we're going in, and I'm just, I have, goosebumps thinking about, the induction ceremony and being there and being among, all the legends that inspired us, that came before us. So, and that's very humbling.
It seems so humbling in so many ways. And I feel that, why do you think it took so long to get that recognition?
That's a very good question. I do not know the answer to that. I mean, there's been rumors as to why we were held off for so long. But to tell you the truth, I do not know what was on their minds. I think we definitely had the credentials to get in. We had 16 top 30 hits. We had 9 top 10 hits. We had a number 1 with I Want to Know What Love Is. 4 and a 4 was on at number 1 on the charts for 10 weeks. We sold over 80 million records. I don't know what else, you could do as far as credentials to get in, but so we've been very patient. We've waited, and here we are.
That's phenomenal. Who are some of your influencers? Like when you were coming up,
Oh, I am a fan of music, all kinds of music. So when I was growing up, I listened to just about anything. Obviously, I was 14 when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, and that was like the moment that, turned everything inside out. And then I wanted to be in a band after that, and I just was in one band after another. But I've had so many influences. I think Steve Winwood, when he was with Spencer Davis, then with Traffic, he was my idol. I mean, the keyboards, he had such a spectacular voice. Also played guitar. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Keith Emerson was a big influence on what I did. The Yes Band and Rick Wakeman, keyboard players. I just, I would listen to just about anything. Tower of Power was a big, John McLaughlin and the Mahavishnu Orchestra. I was a big fan of them. Early Genesis, when Peter Gabriel was a part of the band, just, blew me away. Queen, big fan of them. So yeah, I a lot of influences. I would always listen to just about anything. I was like a sponge, just taking everything in.
See that? I think that's the cool thing of creative people, is they look at their idols and try to look at what their skill sets are and emulate them and set yourself to the bar. When did you know how good you were on the keyboard, Al? What age?
I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't, I'm a perfectionist. I always prided myself in trying to be as best as I can and constantly learn. I was always, trying to do new things, and with synthesizers, trying to get new sounds, and just trying to be the best that I could, and listen to everything I could, and pick up what I could. I went to Brooklyn Conservatory of Music for composition and arrangement to try and be a songwriter myself, because I've been in so many bands that have broken up before. And I said, I need to be more independent. I can't rely on everybody else because everybody keeps leaving me and going different directions. So that was a big influence on me to be able to write and to be able to put things together on my own.
Okay. Greg you have any other questions, Greg, before your final?
Yeah, just another quick one for you. Being a musician, and especially I mean the era that I was listening to all around the same time, 70s and 80s. I mean, music today and acts today are so different. Whatever happened to regular instruments, and not everything being a DJ based electronic system. It's like so different now.
Yeah, it is a bit different. I must admit, I'm very fortunate to have been growing up in the period when, you played your own instruments and you wrote your own songs and you there weren't any tricks involved. You go into the studio and you played, your music. Nowadays it's different. There's a lot of computers have come into how you create. A lot of different producers on the same record, so it's not the continuity that you would have as a band. But I think, things go in cycles, and I'm hopeful that, bands do come back. I mean, vinyl has come back. I'm I'm hopeful with that. I mean, it's great to have a record, that you feel and you open up and you read the liner notes, and that's a wonderful experience. And people didn't have that until this revival again of vinyl.
Yeah.
So yeah, all those things are going in cycles. So I'm sure that bands will come back.
So yeah, it's everything's cyclical.
Yeah.
Now, what projects do you have coming up right now, Al, that you can promote? What's going on for you?
Well, we're doing the induction on the 19th in Cleveland, which is I'm looking forward to that. Then right after that, the Present Foreigner band, who are out there, they've been out there for almost 20 years. And they're great. I mean, great bunch of guys, fantastic musicians, and they put on one great show. And we join them every once in a while. The original guys go out there and join them and that's a whole lot of fun. I mean, to meet the fans and go out there and be with the guys. But after the induction ceremony, we're going to be doing the residency in Las Vegas at the Venetian Hotel. So there's 8 shows there. So Rick Wills and I will be joining them to do all 8 of those shows. And that's the end of their tour for this year. But they've been telling me that next year they're going to cut down the amount of dates that they do, but that we would be more involved in doing those shows too. So I'm looking forward to all of that.
All right. Well, fantastic. Greg has his final question, and be ready, Al, for this question.
Okay.
All right. I ask everyone, and I'm really looking forward to learning from you on this one. So, Al, tell me, what do you feel is the most important thing in life that you've ever learned?
Oh, it has to be persistence. I mean, for me, I've gotten to a brick wall so many times in my life, and you have to find a way to get over it, around it, through it. You can't just be stopped by somebody telling you no, or you're just not good enough, or or something happens, and you just have to keep at it. And where there's a will, there's a way. That's as simple as I could say it. You really have to, if you want to do this, if you want to dedicate yourself to being in music, which is it's hard, and especially now it's even harder. You really have to keep going. You just have to keep going.
Fantastic.
Right.
Thank you.
Wow. Al, best place people can find info on you. Where can they go?
They can go to my website, which is al-greenwood.com. And the reason that the dash is in there is because algreenwood.com is owned by someone in England who will not give up the domain name.
Really?
Yes. And I've offered enormous amounts of money to get that, and they will not give it up for some reason. I don't know if there's another Al Greenwood somewhere, but they're not using it. It doesn't go anywhere.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's al-greenwood.com. So you'll see all the information on me. There's some music that I've been doing lately. A lot of pictures, bios, and just tons of stuff. So
All right. We appreciate it, Al. That was the special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and celebrity interviews live from the grotto with Greg Hanna. Guys, take care. Greg, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing amazing, Neil. How about yourself?
Fantastic. And our guests today are going to bring me back to the days of education and parenting. Our guests today are Arthur Meyer, writer, also Stephanie Drake. We know her from her acting career. Stephanie and Arthur, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right, go ahead, Greg, with your first question.
Well, first of all, Stephanie, it was great seeing you on Mad Men and Goldberg's. Have pretty cool shows. But Arthur, how did you and Stephanie connect to start this podcast?
Well, I had written, the 50 episodes of this ABC parenting series, and a different friend of mine was originally going to play the role that Stephanie ended up playing, but she was pregnant and was feeling some pretty bad first trimester symptoms, and we had already scheduled the shoot. So I was scrambling to think, like, who should I have to replace her? And I remember that like a year earlier, I had been watching Mad Men with my wife, and Stephanie was so funny in every scene. She plays Meredith, one of Don Draper's secretaries. And I just kind of threw a Hail Mary and was like, would you want to come out to New York and, be my co-host in this 50 episode series? And she said yes.
Wow.
Cool.
I think that
Yeah,
is.
we didn't.
Yeah, go ahead, Stephanie.
No, we didn't know each other. He had DM'd me on Instagram a year before telling me that he was watching Mad Men because he had just had a baby. And all you do after you have a baby is watch TV and play with your baby. So he binge watched Mad Men, and I was so excited to get a message from someone. I mean, Mad Men's been off for so long, I don't hear from people that often anymore. And then when he DM'd me again a year later, I was thrilled at the idea because I'm also a relatively new mom. And we kind of bonded over that and all the funny parenting channels that are out there giving advice. And I thought a channel giving really bad advice just sounded hilarious.
I love it. See, the bad advice might be good advice, Greg.
It probably will be, which is exciting about it. But Stephanie, what's your ultimate goal for the podcast, if you have one?
For ABC Parenting?
Yeah.
To become huge TikTok stars. Obviously, no. I mean, I would love to keep doing it. The beauty of it is that the content is endless. There's always things to talk about being a parent. Every day, you can come up with a new idea for an episode.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Arthur, isn't it true? Come up with any time there's a topic involving parenting. And parenting coaching was like this big boom in, I'd say, the 90s or the 2000s to the 2010s when I was a teacher. And then it's kind of like, what has happened, Arthur, to parenting? Like, what has happened to these parenting coaches and parenting advice and these different things? It's kind of disappeared to, hey, maybe you could check TikTok, but there really isn't anything.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of think that parenting channels are just ubiquitous now. Like they're everywhere, but that kind of seems like that's just the internet in general. But anything where you could possibly get advice on something is just online. And there are just, with parenting specifically, if you ask 10 different friends what their opinion is on how to handle something, you'll get 10 different answers. So there's just a million billion different parenting channels out there. And we just thought, well, it would be fun to do one where it's actually funny, because a lot of them give real advice that's good advice. We thought, what's the one thing?
So this would be funny. I wonder what bad advice was really good advice.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we do actually have a couple episodes that occasionally have what I think might be decent advice. Like, for example, we have one about screen time. Screen time is a big issue for parents. So our solution to that is to allow your kids screen time, but only if it's content that is boring or not relevant. So it's a thing that we call stimulate. And it basically is you show your kids things that are no longer relevant, like, for example, a Dennis Miller stand-up comedy set from 1990, something like that. And then your kid will watch that and will no longer want to have anything to do with the screen.
A question for each of you independently, or you could do it all together. I mean, that would be interesting. So you both mentioned newborns or young, just had some children. And what's one or two really bad tips or advice for, a new mom and a new dad?
Well, I was talking to someone the other day. I won't say who, and their advice was to whoop them. I'd say that's not great advice.
That's pretty across the board bad advice. Well, we have one episode of ABC Parenting that covers how not to offend your child when you change their poopy diaper. And we have a few options for how to handle that. One is to just make faces that aren't obvious disgust. So to kind of take a face and, going from something like that to something like that. So that's probably an example. Actually, that's decent advice now that I think about it. You don't want to offend your baby when you're changing their diaper.
You don't want to get upset and say, because it's my 5th diaper I'm changing. No,
yes, exactly.
That's not a good idea. Or change it yourself.
Change it yourself, right? Even if that's the internal voice, you can't always say that to your kid. Because also they don't even know
a lot of internal voices with parenting. Oh, yes. Trust me. And I understand. All right. Go, Greg. Next question.
Did we get answers from both? I mean,
let's hear.
We had whoop 'em and poopy face. All right.
Any other bad advice? Now, what do you think so the goal is virality, as Stephanie was talking about. I'm going to ask a question on virality. What do you think for repurposing your podcast has been your best so far ability to get the most viral views for you or the most engagement?
We have one episode that I think did really well, partially because it kind of lends itself to virality, which is we have an apology episode. So, I feel like the online apology is something that really hit its stride about 5 or 7 years ago or something like that. So we have an episode called Wacky Zoo where Stephanie and I sing a song about how the cow goes oink and the pig goes moo, and that's what you get at the Wacky Zoo. The next week, we release an episode where we apologize for the song Wacky Zoo for unintentionally misinforming toddlers and in a few cases adults about the sounds that zoo animals make. And that episode went viral pretty quickly. And I think probably part of it is that, we label it, an apology from ABC Parenting. So the funny thing about that is there's a lot of people on TikTok who believe that this is a real parenting channel that's actually making a sincere apology. There's a lot of people who know that we're joking, but there's way more people than there should be. You listen
to it because I listened to a little bit of samples and I thought, regular parenting. I didn't catch it because there's really, but I think it's a genius thing. But then you need to go and do some collaborations with some real parenting podcast.
Yeah, that's actually one of the goals that we're going to try to do for our second season, I guess, if you could call it a season, but is linking up with some legitimate parenting channels
and see if they like that. And then that could help them. And those micro influencers are the really ones you want to work with versus the ones that are serious influencers, because all they want to do is get paid. And then they ultimately won't even get you the views or the engagement you truly want to get people to go back and listen to the podcast.
So Neil, what's your bad tip for parenting? Good tip.
No, bad tip for parenting. You know what? Okay, guys, I'm just sick and tired of you guys. Just don't talk for 5 hours. There you go. I just want silence.
That's not bad.
I don't want to hear you for 5 hours.
Neil, I think you're onto something.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. The only change I would make to that is to extend it to 6. But other than that, I think it's a pretty foolproof.
Yeah, maybe 8, and then say but then I'm going to bribe them with candy and the iPad and just lock them in the room. Not lock them in the room; they'll be in their room. Because you give them everything they want in their room. And that's the craziness of kids today. They just want to stay in their rooms. It's because of the virtual world that we live in. It's crazy. That's it. They stay in their rooms. Yeah. And I'm still trying to understand that. I think I kind of like that, but some people just don't get it.
Yeah, no, it's crazy how quickly the kids just leap at your phone. Like my 2-year-old, if he just sees the phone out, he'll just like practically jump over to it, you
Because
know?
they're all made to continue to watch, and watch, regardless of what.
Yeah.
Uh, they were
Greg,
jacked and ready to go.
Greg, what's your bad parenting advice?
My parent. Oh my goodness. Ah, God, it's been so long.
Mhm.
I can't even tell you. Even my granddaughter's all grown up.
Aw.
Aw.
Whoa, granddaughter, that's crazy. I can't even imagine that.
All right. So
So Stephanie,
Greg's in the clear. Okay.
I'm
All right.
clear.
All right. So Greg, go ahead with other questions about our stars.
Stephanie,
team.
and Arthur. Well, so for Stephanie, what was it like being on Mad Men? And Arthur, what did you love about Mad Men that made you want to binge watch?
No, Arthur was on he was writer. But go ahead with
No, I know, but I was asking. He said he
Arthur.
binge watched it, right, Neil?
Great
So
question.
Yes.
why did he want to binge watch it? And Stephanie, what was it that you loved about it? Tell me about it.
Oh gosh, I mean, I loved everything about being on that show. It was my first real job. I'd only done a few commercials before that, so I feel like I learned how to be on TV, being on one of the best sets ever. John Hamm taught me how to find my light. And when we were working, and I mean, everyone was so nice. It was a well-oiled machine by the time I came on season 5. And it was wonderful. All the actors were wonderful. I mean, I had no idea when I booked the job that I would get to be on it for 3 seasons. I thought it was just going to be a 1-episode thing. And they just kept bringing me back and bringing me back and bringing me back. And it turned into a wonderful 22-episode run. I can't say enough good things about it. It's opened a lot of doors for me.
Very cool.
And yes, Stephanie is so funny in it. I feel like I just was drawn to her. Like every scene she's in, she kind of steals it for me. Because it's a show that's is funny at times. A lot of times it's also pretty dramatic. But every moment that Stephanie is in is really funny. I think there's just a certain vacancy and positivity, kind of like a warmth that's sort of cut by ditziness, kind of that like just really makes me laugh. And honestly, I think lends itself really well to ABC parenting, where we are confidently delivering bad advice. I'm just really drawn to stupid people in comedy, and I would say that Meredith is perhaps not the brightest tool in the shed, but it takes a lot of intelligence to play dumb. I genuinely think so. I think some of the funniest comedians ever are who can play stupid really well are in fact themselves very smart.
Now, Arthur, do you do all the writing for the podcast?
Yeah, for ABC Parenting, I wrote all the episodes. But yeah, for the next season, I'm kind of opening it up to, we have a little ABC Parenting team, and I invited people to contribute their own episodes.
Wow. And so Arthur, you also you wrote, as Neil had mentioned, for Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore, and I'm sure a number of other people well known and maybe not so well known. Did you have a particular process or mindset that you'd get into when you were writing for these guys? If you just walk us through that.
Yeah, so the big thing with a late night show, and with the Drew Barrymore show too, any show that's on every day, it's basically like a factory. So it's basically just kind of a grind. A lot of times when I was at Fallon, I would take the subway to work at 8 a.m, and I'd try to be thinking of ideas of things that I could pitch that could go into the monologue that day. And if you kind of cleared enough hurdles, then something that you wrote that morning on the subway could be on TV that night, at 11:30 when you're home. So it's just, I think there's a certain work ethic that contrasts my naturally lazy nature that I think really teaches you to not be precious about your ideas, to just kind of, each idea, it's like a Kleenex, like you use it, toss it away, move on to the next one. And a show like Fallon, it's kind of, I sort of compare a show like Fallon to the baseball season, where a show like SNL is kind of like football, where like, a nightly show, it's like baseball, you're doing one show every day. So even your best teams are going to lose 40, 50, 60 games in a season. So you're not going to like have a great show every night, but that's kind of part of it, whereas a show like SNL, once a week, kind of like football, you get fewer chances, so you really want to try to make it good. But I really like that daily nature of working at a late night show, and it works. It lends itself well to something like ABC Parenting, where we just we do 50 episodes, so it's like, what's the first instinct that you have for an idea, and then how do I exaggerate that to make it funny?
Very
So
cool.
one
Real
thing,
quick follow-up,
Yeah,
Neil.
yeah.
So besides, writing for your ABC podcast, you guys, are you still writing for other creatives now, or?
I am not right now. I'm sort of kind of, taking a few gigs here and there, but kind of looking for work, but also just taking time to, focus on my own writing and ABC, which is really fun. I think that, a lot of friends that I have right now are having sort of a tough time in the entertainment industry finding work. So this seems like a really good time to try to work on your own project, something that you're in creative control of, and that you could potentially show to people who might make it into a bigger thing. I mean, one of my dreams I have for ABC Parenting would be to turn it into a full TV show, which would be amazing. And I think the best way to do that is to kind of make these examples of what the episodes could be.
Excellent.
what do you think the reason why not writers are having difficulty even after the strike to find work?
I think it's pretty complicated, but I think a lot of it has to do with the streaming services kind of cutting back on the amount of money that they're giving to shows. I think when streaming started, they were just greenlighting everything, and the model there was to just like produce, make all these shows, and then eventually we'll recoup our money and make some profits. And I just think that a lot of these streamers ended up kind of losing money, so they're just getting a lot more conservative in terms of what shows they're greenlighting. Also, I think that the gains made in the Writers Guild strike, which was last year, were very beneficial, but I kind of think were maybe more beneficial to writers who have been really established or have been in the industry for a long time, and not as beneficial to writers who haven't had as many jobs or that kind of thing. But I also don't know. I don't know. I mainly just know that I have a lot of friends who are kind of struggling right now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Greg, you're up to your final question, right, Greg? For
All
both.
right. You each get it.
All right.
Who wants to go first?
You want to do
I'll
this
go
one?
first.
Okay, great. All
Sure.
right. Okay. So, and I'm looking for an answer from your heart on this one for sure. So tell me, Stephanie, what do you feel is the most important thing in life you've ever learned?
Wow. The most important thing in life I've ever learned. I think family is, and keeping family close and dear to your heart. I was with my family about a month ago and watching my son with his cousins. I was so emotional. And I was like, I turned to my husband and I was like, this is what it's all about.
Very cool. Great answer.
I have the same question.
Yeah, Arthur, what do you feel is the most important thing in life you've ever learned?
Okay. Can I, in place of that, can I answer the least important thing in life I have not learned? That would be when a van is backing up and going in reverse and it's making the beep, beep, beep noise. What part of the van is that coming from? That's the least important thing in life that I have never learned. I don't know where the beeping comes from when a van backs up. Does anyone here know? There's no speakers on a van, right? Where's the beeping coming from?
I don't know.
It's the least important thing that I've never learned.
All right, so let's go with the real one now.
Oh no. Okay, I guess the most important thing is probably, I don't know. I guess probably to trying to think. What's the most important thing? I guess that that we all die one day. That seems pretty important. I guess I learned that at a young age. But it seems pretty important to kind of keep in your mind so that you can kind of do what you want to do in life while you're alive, if you can.
That's actually a very strong answer. I like that. Yeah.
Wait, I have a question for you, Craig.
Yeah.
So we're on Zoom right now, and I noticed that your background is an interesting one, and I want to know what the background is called. When you select it, is it called 17th century dungeon? Like, what is it called?
It is called My Grotto in My House.
I think
That's
it's
your actual
real.
house?
Yeah.
I am in awe. I cannot believe this.
That's my wine cellar.
But
Oh,
he's using it as
wow.
a Zoom background, but that
Yeah.
is his wine cellar in his
Yeah.
basement. in his-
Cool.
That is amazing.
When I'm home, it's my studio, but I'm not home today.
All right. Well, fantastic. We appreciate it, guys. Best place we can watch ABC's parenting. Where can we go and listen?
Well, it's on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. We're always trying to get more subscribers on YouTube. So if you just look up ABC Parenting on YouTube, then you'll find something like about 40 episodes.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. We talk about Law and Order and the history of Law and Order. And my two guests today, Makad Brooks and Reed Scott, are going to talk about the new season of Law and Order. Guys, thanks for stopping by. How are you?
We're doing great. Thanks for having us.
Fantastic. Let's talk about it, Makad. Tell us about your character really quickly for people that might not know.
Detective Galen Shaw was started off as a lawyer. He became a vice detective, and now he's a homicide detective. Our first introduction into his life as a homicide detective was my first episode, my first case 3 years ago. And he's become very comfortable in that space, evolved into understanding that when you're a homicide detective, that you don't work for the NYPD, you work for God, and you work for the family. You're the last bastion of hope between the grieving family whose loved one was taken from this place and their transition into the afterlife. And he takes that role of Anubis very seriously. We both do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What about your character, Reed?
I play Detective Vincent Riley. He's a recovering alcoholic. He's a divorced father of two. So he's got a lot of personal issues, and he's the kind of guy who just throws himself into his work almost as a means to, kind of avoid some of the things going on in his personal life. So because of that, he can run a little hot. He can get a little intense. He may have a snarky comment here and there. He's kind of known for some dark, sardonic cop humor, or Bacchian, we call it.
Yeah.
But he's a guy who's very dedicated to the job. And, he prides himself on being a good partner. He backs his partner up, and they have a very serious job to do, which is try to make their hometown of New York City a little bit safer.
Mm-hmm.
And Makad, you can't really give away a lot, but what should we expect this season? Because, people could go back and stream so many seasons of it, and you don't want to spoil things. What is the expectation this season?
Yeah, that's a great question, Neil. I think what really differentiates this season is because I've been a fan for decades, and what makes this one different is that we're really delving into character. We're really delving into backstory. We're really finding out what makes these guys tick. It's not just we want the audience not to just care about the case, but who's solving the case. Not just about the case, but who's trying the case. And I think that we're doing a fantastic job in Shaw's backstory and Riley's backstory. And you find out that Shaw, has some sense of being a foster child in his background, and drug abuse in his family. Coming from a military family as well. There's just a lot there that feels like a very lived-in character, and I think that's going to go for all the characters on the show, and that's just never happened before. And I've been watching it for a long time, and I've just never seen that. So I think fans are really going to dig their teeth into that for sure.
We're back to the Neil Haley Show. My guest today is Stephen Hoffen, who's impressed me, this 16-year-old that continues for growing piece. What's the latest news, Stephen? Update us. What's happening?
Yeah, so most recently over this summer, I forget when our first interview was, but this summer we installed 2 new systems, one at the Common Point Queens Youth Opportunity Hub, and then another at the Queensboro Correctional Facility. So we have those 2 systems up and running right now, and I have been starting this school year volunteering at the Edgecombe Residential Treatment Facility and the Queensboro Correctional Facility. I just came back actually from Edgecombe. We had a huge harvest the past 2 weeks. I think we harvested like 60 bags today of fresh produce that goes right to the prison kitchen. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Wow. And you're doing this while in college now, or you're not in college yet, but you're preparing
Yeah.
yourself for that. This is still in high school.
Junior high school.
Cool. So, I mean, it's amazing to think about what you're doing, Stephen. And I think that where you come up with all these ideas, are you coming up with them for your foundation, or just going with it, or you have a good team around you to kind of tell us about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, Growing Peace it's really just me, but a lot of the places that we end up installing systems are brought to us by partners in the past. So for example, when I partnered with Topeka Sam and the LOHM to install a system at their Ladies of Hope Ministries Hope House, they actually ended up referring us to the Edgecombe Residential Treatment Facility in Queensboro as well. So that's where we got that connection there. And then once I installed a system at the YMIWHA, they referred us to the MMCC and to Common Point Queens as well.
Oh, okay. So a lot of interesting things going on. Tell me the logistics of doing one of your events, like one of the things where you go to the schools or doing certain things. Tell us logistics involved in that.
Yeah, so I guess once we have an idea of who we would like to partner with to install a system, then we do an initial site visit. So we go there, we check out the area, check out the location. We try to find a suitable room to install the hydroponic system. Once we've picked that out, we send some measurements and some pictures over to our hydroponics partners, Green Food Solutions. And then they come up with like a calculation basically of how many towers we can fit in, how tall the towers can be. And we send them the money, send them funds, and they get the parts shipped over. We install the system, and then from there we can start producing food, and they can tell us what they would like to grow, whether that's leafy greens or fruiting crops, whatever they want.
Wow. A lot of interesting things, Stephen, for sure, that you do when you set one of those up. And then the process after the follow-up, kind of explain the follow-up for me.
Yeah, so I guess once we have installed a system, we sometimes do a training, or sometimes Growing Peace and some partners hire Green Food Solutions, our partner, to maintain the system for us. And the organizations that we work with can really pick out and decide what types of produce they want to grow, whether that's, like I mentioned, mint, lettuce, cilantro, basil, collard greens, or if they want to get more into like, cherry tomatoes, strawberries, cucumbers, that sort of thing. So they can decide. And like I mentioned, I've also volunteered at a couple of our systems in the past as well.
Wow. Very, very interesting. What are the projects you have coming up soon for us to update us?
I think we're not totally sure yet, but we're looking at potentially expanding to more prisons in the New York City area, maybe expanding outside of New York with the help of board of directors. And I mean, yeah, we have some projects related to Growing Peace, but like I mentioned, also this idea of a longevity plan or a board of directors is going to be really helpful when it comes to finding people outside of New York that can help us coordinate installations that aren't just in the city, that it would be a little bit more difficult for me to coordinate. So,
all right, fantastic. Best place people can find information on you. Where can they go?
Best place would probably be my website, growingpeaceinc.org. You can find our social media, all of information about all of our projects, and yeah.
It's very, very interesting about talking about the power of storytelling. And my guest today is going to really get into it more, Yvonne Choatsen. She's an award-winning Hollywood TV movie producer and seasoned attorney. How are you, Yvonne? And thanks for stopping by.
I'm wonderful, Neil. Thank you for having me, and hello to your wonderful listeners.
Yes, let's kind of just jump right into a little bit about your background and we'll get started.
Right. I'm eldest of 8 brothers and sisters. First assignment as a little kid was tell stories to put those babies to sleep. And the family grew to 8 brothers and sisters. I have a twin brother, I'm the oldest. And there's no more complicated audience to please than kids. So from the very get-go, I had to learn to be exciting, to modulate my voice, to get quiet so they'd go to sleep. That became puppet shows in the neighborhood. We got a refrigerator box, we cut a hole in it, and we were known as the local Chosin puppeteers. We started getting paid big money at birthday parties all over the city. I still did that in college. It basically paid my way through. So that practice of telling stories and captivating an audience that was honed in childhood became a natural skill when I was a federal public defender, one of the first hires in the District of Hawaii. And I quickly learned that with those powerful prosecutors, their booming voices, those huge oak courtrooms with very high ceilings, that I could not compete if I tried to yell like the guys. So I learned, just like I did with those children in the bedroom, to modulate my voice almost to a whisper so the jury would lean in. And by telling stories that humanized my indigent client, I quickly had a star-breaking, acquittal rate. After doing this for 10 years, I started yearning for an audience bigger than a jury of 12. And my chance came one day. I'm called down to the lockup. I was the duty attorney. And there's this buxom blonde, huge breasts, hair ratted, piled up. She was charged with murder, being part of a triangle love affair, and kidnapping of a child. The case was so high profile, it was moved from 900,000 population Honolulu to 10 million population Los Angeles. And in the middle of that court hearing, boom, boom, the courtroom door kept banging open. And it's very rude when you're a federal attorney to turn your back on the judge. Right. So I wrote the prosecutor a note on my yellow legal pad, and I said, who are all these people? It's a Wednesday morning in downtown Los Angeles. Who cares about this case from Hawaii? He wrote back, they're all Hollywood producers. They want the life rights to your client's story. And I thought, maybe this is my prayer answered. I jumped up, Your Honor, recess, please. And in a few minutes, the client, Kathy, was taken down by the U.S. Marshals in handcuffs to the lockup, and I was ushered in. And in my rush to get down there, I'd only brought like one pen. And I said, Kathy, what do you want to do? All these producers are like hovering around, they're packing the courtroom. The judge closed access. I said, how do you want to solve this? And she took a napkin. She was eating a single red apple, and she grabbed the napkin and grabbed my pen and wrote on that napkin, Yvonne Chosin is my producer. And at that moment, I got the chills, and I looked at that napkin and asked her what, and she said, get all the money you can for my baby. You see, the child that was kidnapped was Kathy's very own child. After the murder, what happened was she was a lonely Marine wife. Her husband had been gone for months and months. Unfortunately, she got into an affair with another Marine. Her husband showed up on Kaneohe Air Corps Marine Base unexpectedly with a stomach ailment. He walked in, they were in bed, a fight ensued, and her husband ended up dead. She was charged with conspiracy to commit the murder, and her mother-in-law, the grandmother to her child, Christy, who was a little girl, went to court in Alabama, and because of the adultery, ruled that she was an unfit mother and would never have access to her child again. So she, with her sister, put on a black wig, went to that little town in Alabama, on the one day in the year that everybody poured out of their homes, the 4th of July, waited in the bushes, and sure enough, little Christy chased a ball across the park. She ran out, she grabbed her daughter, they raced to the car, and there was a 7-state chase. A few months later, she was caught, and there you have the kidnapping charge. So Kathy knew with a federal kidnapping charge, she was not going to see her daughter for a very, very long time. And that's where I came in. She said, if my daughter gets a legacy from me because of you getting my life rights compensated this way, at least she'll know that I still love her. And then here I am. I've never pitched anything before. I signed up with one of those producers who was
Right.
circling. I go into NBC and I thought everybody like had black Gucci jeans and black t-shirts. Everything was black and very it was just a world I didn't know. But I thought, I've been arguing for people's freedom for 10 years. What's the worst thing that can happen if I pitch this story and they say, no, we'll just go to the next place? They didn't say no, they said yes. It became NBC's highest rated miniseries in 8 years. It starred Martin Sheen and Patty Duke. Talk about beginner's luck. My phone never stopped ringing off the hook. Overnight, I'm a Hollywood producer.
All right. So from that, this is a great story. We have only a few more minutes to go. My question to you is, after that, did you continue to be a Hollywood producer?
I'm on my 14th movie. I look for life rights everywhere. Along the way, there was another wonderful manifestation, which was 3 children. And so when the writer's strike, which just happened, lasted 10 months, I thought, what can I monetize with 3 kids in college? And I thought, storytelling. And I started coaching people and telling their stories, helping entrepreneurs see that if you can find your story and design it and deliver it with impact, that you will captivate your audiences, inspire people to action, and make smash hit money. And that's where my business, Tell Your Story Like Hollywood, came from.